Hello everyone, welcome back to Pris Corner with me Pris. I hope you're okay wherever you are. Today on What's Real or Not episodes, I am discussing another new Japanese comic/manga series titled The Inn of the Lost Things. This series was made by Hozumi, which only contained 3 volumes until the end. So this is basically a short series as well. If you want to know more about this series, I will leave the details in a link in the description box below. And if you want to support me further, I will leave the link in the description box below as well. So let's jump into What's Real or Not episodes today. So before we start, I would like to tell you a few things beforehand. There are a few characters that doesn't have a name and basically sometimes attributed to their role in the stories. That's why I would like to give them a nickname in order to not confuse you and makes you more comfortable in listening. Firstly, our female lead is being called Lady Owner or Owner Lady in literal translation. But I would give her a nickname as Landlady, so every time you hear Landlady, it means the female lead. Secondly, about our male lead, named Atsushi Masura, but usually he's being called Masura. His role is basically as a guide that guides the Yara spirit to the end of the lost thing. So basically, his role is as the guide. So I usually calls him Masura or the guide. Thirdly, there is an old man who basically guarding the gate of the inn or the lost thing, but he doesn't have a name, so I would give him a nickname, the gatekeeper. So every time I mention the gatekeeper, it means this old man or him basically that usually basically escort the guests into their rooms. And I think that's all. After getting things out of the way, we can get started. So already concluded that this series is based by 7% fantasy, 3% gray area, and lastly 90% real part. As per usual, we'll start with the fantasy part, then move on to the gray area, and lastly on the real part. So let's dive into What's Real or Not episodes today. Again, for the fantasy part, like I said in the previous series that I already covered, because this is supernatural and I think there is no scientific proof or evidence that I can see. That's why I concluded in the fantasy. Even though I think it's still more tend to reality more than the other city one, because this is the afterlife or basically the place between life and death type of thing. Well, I never die, so how could I know anyway? Even though I really want to know, I'm really curious anyway. Okay, I think like the place itself, like the inn of the lost thing itself, and how basically the season inside the inn changes depending on the guest that came. So basically, if the guest die at winter, it will become winter, and if the guest die at summer, it would become summer. And it's also included the staff itself, because the staff who works at the inn is used to be a guest but they cannot find it, so they work at the inn. And so basically it's corresponding to the time of death, or basically the season when they died. It's pretty interesting. It's a very good concept, to be honest, but I think it's still a fantasy because I don't really know anyway. And also I think there is not a lot of basically spirits from animals or animal spirits. I think there's only one, and it's a cat spirit, and other things is just like there's no animals. That's pretty weird. And we don't know really the blueprint of the inn itself. We don't know basically how many rooms that they have, and things like that. Yeah, well, this is supernatural, so yeah. I think that's the fantasy part, and I guess we never shown that. If you remember, Matsura is the guide, right? So basically, he had to search the lost spirit, or the spirit that still wander or roam the earth, and guide the spirit into the end. Well, we never getting a glimpse where they died, or basically where Matsura find the soul. I think there's a pretty things that kind of miss in it. That's why I think, like, yeah, it's fantasy part, or maybe just like basically because there's not a lot of page, so basically cut short thing like that. And I guess that concludes for the fantasy part for me. Secondly, we move on to the gray area. The gray area is just like, I think it's just the same like the other series that I already discussed with you before. It's just like how people so reflective, I guess, man. I mean, they do self introspection, maybe because they're near death, or maybe they already died, so they think that it's no use to lie anymore and things like that. Even though there's still people who still lie. Some people still lie, some people lie and finally being caught on their lie and finally confess the truth, and or because they sometimes lie without realize that they are lying, to be honest. That's pretty baffled me. But yeah, I think that's why I think it's gray, because not so many people are self-introspective like that, first of all. Secondly, sometimes there are some people that who will still lie even to until their deathbed, or even until they die, they're still lying, which is like baffled me. So I think this is kind of gray, because not everyone is self-introspective like that, even though after death. I don't think you can change that quickly, but yeah, again, I'll never die, so how could I know? That's why I put it in gray area. Maybe happen, maybe not. And yeah, and most of the time when being guided by Matsura, the spirit didn't really like, have any suspicious or any doubt about it. Yeah, a little bit complaining, yeah, a little bit complaining, of course, but they don't really have any doubt whatsoever. And even though the doubts are being expressed when they are at the end, they find it weird at the very first thing. And also the stuff of work at the end, I think that's pretty normal. But some people express it, some people don't, which I guess is basically depends on the characters and depend on the person. Basically depend on person to person. So yeah, it's really interesting. That's why the author is really, really great making that. And again, I think that's for the gray area. And move on to the real part. This 90% is pretty high. There's not much that I can speak about this series, because yeah, this is just so good that in order to basically experience it fully, you have to read it for yourself, not only listening to me that basically give you the big picture. And for me, the real part is just like about the emotional turmoil, especially at the third volumes. Our male and female lead, kind of turbulence that they have to confront. And I think the journey along the way, their relationship progress, it's just like pretty normal step by step. But basically you lose your memory, so how could you be basically comfortable with people that you don't know, for example. And also about the other people who work at the inn, even the guest itself, the emotional trauma that they experience, then basically their inner monologue, even the narration itself, it's just pretty good, pretty has some poetic qualities, and also basically really relatable to real life, I guess, if you're in their shoes. Basically, that's pretty baffled me, and even you can basically learn from it and bring it into your real life. It could be a helpful advice, I guess, in a way, a helpful suggestion for you, which I really appreciate a lot. That's why this series just stole my heart and stole my mind. Become my top number one series that I like, even though it's short. I just really like this series a lot. Like when people finally confront the truth of what's really going on, what's really happening with them, what exactly that they want to do, what is their unfinished business, and how to resolve it, and finally basically accept as it is the reality that's happening in front of them, and finally let go of the things that bound them to earth. It just, everything just so nicely and neatly placed is perfect for me. Everything from the plot itself and the execution, it's really relatable to real life, like for example, you might think that what's important to you is basically money, but apparently not. Apparently the most important to you is your family. For example, your son in the first volume, the second volumes, even though you really want to stay, but because you basically consider other people as a replacement of your daughter, that's kind of baffled me. But you have to realize that this person is not your daughter. She is her own person, and you need to let go of that. And things like, you always try to search for things, but the more you search for it, the more you're not gonna find it. When you basically surrender and let go and just try as best as you can, as much as you can, you're gonna find it. Because the answer is not lie on the outside or external. The answer is lie on the inside of yourself. Really. Because I think you already know the answer on how to solve that problem, but you just keep delaying things because you don't like to confront it. And I understand that sentiment. I sympathize with that. Because it's easy to say, it's hard to do, to be honest. Because, well, it's easy to run away, right? But you cannot run away from it forever. Isn't that right? And that's why the series really touch you a lot. And sometimes, you have to remember, like, if you really want to search for people that you can trust, the only key, just like, did they do what they said? Like I mentioned in the previous episodes, if they didn't do the things that they said, they're not the person that you can trust. Because sometimes people say, I'm selfish, I only care about myself, but when the chips are down, when everything's that bad happening one by one, they're really the one who really cares. And vice versa, when people say like, I really care about other people, we care about you, and blah blah blah, but apparently when the chips are down, they only care about themselves. They shove you, and basically they use you as a sacrifice in order to elevate them, like a stepping stone. Even they take an advantage of you, they're demanding a lot from you, and the relationship become toxic. So remember, what they say, or basically what's on the surface, is not basically determining what's on the inside. Because of course we all of the people, including me and everyone, and also you, the one who listen, we're not a mind reader anyway. But not everyone gonna be honest with us, and of course we're not gonna be honest with everyone, right? Because we want to protect ourselves. We're afraid of rejection, abandonment, and judgment from other people. That's why I really advise you to stay strong and be comfortable in your skin. Be comfortable, be who you are. Because if you keep basically hiding in your shell, or basically hiding away, well, I think that's gonna be not so good for you in the future. Maybe it's good for you now, but not so good in the future. Because no matter how much you basically try to avoid it, you have to face it, and it will keep reappearing in front of you again and again until you basically confront it and basically conquer it or defeat it and move on past that. That's, I think, for me. I'm sorry I got a little bit too emotional on this one because this series was pretty heavy and really awesome and really good, but it's still a little bit sad for me. And I hope you get a lot from this. And again, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy my contents. I'm sorry if there is wrong grammar and mispronunciations. And don't forget to stay tuned on my Instagram page to know what kind of contents I'm gonna be uploading soon. And don't forget to stay tuned on my KoFi Page, also on any other podcast platform that you listen in. Hope you get a lot from this, and be sure to check out this series, by the way. I'm not sponsored anyway, this is purely my opinion. And hope to see you soon. Bye bye.